Hello, everyone. We are today here for another episode of the HR Tech Lions podcast. I've got the pleasure of having Thomas with me today, who's the CEO and founder of Deecido. Actually, I see, I just got the name wrong. You just told me. And basically, we're going to be talking, as usual, about the state of the recruitment world and going through some of the lessons that Thomas has learned, as well as some of the wins. So, Thomas, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Thomas Hollen. I'm Danish. I live in Sweden, and thank you for being here. I've been in the recruitment industry for 23 years in HR tech, but the last 20 years as a headhunter, a managing director for several search and selection firms. And now I'm struggling as a founder in a startup where we want to change the world.
Nice, nice. Well, actually, your story resonates with me because I'm also coming from recruitment for many years, and I kind of thought, you know what, I recruitment is great. I really liked it, but I didn't feel like I was making such an impact. And then when you switch to tech, you kind of have the feeling that you reach so many more people, right? At least that was my opinion around it.
That's correct. You know, when you do your recruiting, you help the companies that you work with, but it's just small drops in the big ocean. And with a tech solution, you can actually change the way of working in all countries across the globe if your idea is strong enough.
Exactly, exactly. Well, and that's actually what we'll talk about today. Is usually we start by discussing what is your view and opinion of the market, and we specifically will focus on recruitment and talent acquisition. So, how do you think let's say the market has changed? I would say since COVID, because that's has been really the big hit, I think.
Yeah. I think that the search and selection, the recruitment industry is a very large industry in almost all countries. It's been really difficult to find good people. So the organizations who need to find good people, they cannot find them themselves, and they tend to seek for professional guidance when they are hiring new people. So I think the business has been really busy for a couple of years, and I think it's slowing down.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was still in recruitment during COVID. We were lucky to some extent because we were working in life sciences, which, as you can imagine, had a bit of a stop during COVID, but then started booming like crazy, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think everyone was worried, oh, what we're gonna do, nobody's hiring. And then from one day to the other, things just went insane, right? And I think there's a few reasons for that, but what do you think are the main contributors to this talent shortage, the great resignation?
I think there are multiple factors. I think growth, many people, many companies experience heavy growth, medical devices, pharmacy, IT, the digitalization, so forth. I think there's a lack of people in the industry, so they're stealing from each other with arms
hmm
length.
hmm
It's also a fact that people are getting older,
hmm
less children are being born in the
hmm
Western world. So
hmm
we're going to experience even more gaps in the market. You know,
hmm
there's going to be fewer great candidates to pick from in 10 or 20 years because there's going to be fewer people in a certain age range. Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, I think you mentioned some of the crucial points, which I think is what made recruiters happy. Because obviously, if there's such a big shortage, then HRs are or talent acquisition are far more inclined to outsource it, right? Because there's always that recruiter that's got a better network, they can persuade the person more, etc. And I think this has almost created a vacuum in the sense that recruiters became so sought after. Then now it's the situation that is slowing down, and then recruiters are like, "Well, what's going on now? I don't have as many clients as I used to. Candidates are still hard to find, and this is, I think, has got the talent acquisition to think in a different way, right? So, let's say you got obviously clients in the area. What would be the thought process going through their heads to try and fix this problem, at least from your experience?
Could you please rephrase that?
Sure, sure. It was a long question. I took a little bit too much. So in your experience, given the issues the talent acquisition are facing,
Yeah.
looking forward, if just like how are they trying to optimize the recruitment process, you think?
I think talent acquisition is just a little cog in a big system, because you can have the world's greatest talent acquisition people hired, but if your company politics or your company culture sucks, they can maybe attract some people, but they will only stay for a few months and they'll be out of here. If they don't have a salary that's on market average, they will have problems attracting, because their competition is paying premium price. There's so many things. If you have poor onboarding, if you have poor offboarding, there are so many things interconnected that that influences on the ability to attract good people.
And I actually think that what you're saying particularly resonates, because I was actually mentioning this in the previous episode when we were discussing about that before COVID, at least in a lot of countries, the power was not on the employer side. I'm giving you a job, right? And I feel that now the situation is kind of tilted on its head, and it's more like, well, why should I work for you? Right. And as you were mentioning, now there's so many pieces to the equation. Before, as a recruiter, you would be like, oh, like provide you candidates. Now it's very hard to close the actual candidates down because they got so many options, right?
Yeah.
And is this like, what other you think issues have your clients, or from your impression, what other issues have they been facing, at least in the last couple of years?
I think that there's been it's really difficult to find the great people, and it's really difficult also to find the right tools to find the right people, and it's really time consuming. We see a tendency that really large organizations they kind of insource talent acquisition, so they hire large teams to work on this project. Maybe in a different site than they have their main office. But we also see that the smaller companies, the SMEs, they have no HR. They have maybe a sales director and a managing director, and they cannot spend 100 hours recruiting every time because it's simply too expensive. They need to do what they're great at. So they tend to go more into the market and hire with external help. But at the end, having the best employees is all that matters, because that's when you can make a big difference.
Absolutely. I think generally hiring and managing people well is probably 80% of running a successful business, right? If you got the right people, you're managing them well, then obviously, yes, some of the things need to be right, but that's the kind of the core. And look, especially with this is a trend that I've been seeing, right? That I personally believe, you might tell me similarly, that recruiters generally are not the most tech savvy people, right? I mean, at least I remember, like when I was working in my agency, like we had LinkedIn was already like the incredible thing, right? And everything on top of that was a bit of an extra. You kind of thought, I need a phone, I need an email, I need LinkedIn, I'm okay. And now I think we're seeing that, especially from the in-house recruiters, they're starting to figure out, well, is there technology that can help them with this? And at least the openness to HR tech generally, and recruitment tech, I think, is booming like crazy, is even more. And is this something that with your conversations you've been noticing as well?
Yeah, I think that TA and HR are endorsing new technologies, definitely, to help them do their job better, to help them get better employees, to help them structurize how they work with external vendors, where I come into the picture with Deecido. And it's really difficult, it's funny you said, like, you had a LinkedIn account, you had your phone and a laptop, and that, that's what you need to be a recruiter. And that's a big problem as well, because everybody could be recruiters. They don't need any education background. They don't need any special job experience. They don't need any certifications. They can just jump out and start their own business and just start calling some potential clients. So there are, really a lot of recruiters out there. Some are fantastic, but some are maybe more salespeople than they are really recruiters. But it's difficult to find the needle in the haystack.
Absolutely. I remember when I started recruitment, it was very, very cowboyish generally. I mean, my agency, I was super lucky. We didn't have any of these issues, but when I was calling clients, they were like, who are you? Why are you calling me? And there's this idea that recruiter, just some guy in a basement sitting in their underpants, calling some people, right? And then you got some exceptional recruiters that actually will find that 1 out of 1,000 candidates and will be able to help them figure out what they really want, etc. So I think what's interesting, and then we'll come to discuss later, is I believe we're getting to the point that the industry is starting to regulate itself a little bit. In the sense that the way I see it, if you look at 50 years ago, you would have, or 40 years maybe, car salesmen were like just making ridiculous commissions by not doing a great job. Then you had estate agents doing a similar situation. And I feel that recruiters are kind of sitting in that spot. And these markets correct themselves eventually, because there needs to be the consumer wants something that they can rely on, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you were mentioning as well, I think.
Yeah, they want to engage with people who are trustworthy. I see a tendency that recruiters tend to be like a Swiss Army knife. You have all the tools in one. They can do anything, IT, sales, finance, you name it. They are experts in all areas because they want the assignment. It's the revenue that counts.
Yeah.
But I think that the talent acquisition, the companies who hire these headhunters, they want more specialization. You can't set a carpenter to program a web page and vice versa.
I mean, you can. It's going to take him 1,000 hours to do it, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like you need specialists to do a specialist's job, and to find an IT professional demands a specialist within IT and a person who has a great network within IT. If you want somebody in finance, you need somebody who's been working in finance for years and has a great network. So I think that's going to be something that that the companies, the agencies will see as a demand from hiring companies in the future.
100%. I mean, in my previous company, we only did niche markets. So my market was specifically regulatory affairs in Italy, in pharmaceuticals, which was like 1,000 people, right?
Yeah,
and I knew every person, to the point that if I was calling someone to headhunt them at work, they would be like, I would just introduce myself and they'd be like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Let me give you my number, right? Which is what you want. And then at that point, you're truly a specialist and you should be rewarded. But when I go see a recruitment website these days, it's like, we're a global consultancy. We work alongside manufacturing, chemical, pharmaceuticals. And I'm like, you have 4 people. Like they have like 3 million candidates each to choose from. So obviously that's not what the talent acquisition wants. If they want to pay 20%, 25%, they want the best possible results, right?
Exactly. And it's funny you said that, because this agency with 4 consultants, is it the agency you're buying, or is it the person working in the agency with exactly those skills that you're looking for? And that's where we also have a take on how we think the hiring companies, they want to choose in the future. They're not choosing the logo on the wall. They're choosing the person.
The person. Yeah. And I think in recruitment, this is particularly important. I mean, I think there's very few businesses where if you see a salesperson, or in this case, a recruiter leave, they are able to take sometimes the whole client portfolio. We're not talking about, usually if you work in pharmaceuticals or you work in even software, whatever is the case, if you're leaving, you might be taking 20, 30% of your clients. Some of them you might turn in the future. But in recruitment, sometimes you literally can just take the person and especially if the contacts are not big corporate, they'll take everyone with them. And that's because it's such a people-based business, I would say.
Yeah. And because of that person's skills and performance, because that person is great at what he or she is doing within that specific job category. That's why you want to keep working with that consultant.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I think we built quite a nice base to come into explaining later why this could be relevant for the people listening to us. And now I want to go a bit more personal. I want to discuss a little bit more the human side, right? And can you tell me what has so far been, the biggest lessons that you learned? Because obviously you were running a business before, but now you moved into HR tech. So what have been the biggest stakes so far?
Yeah, I've been I've been this carpenter in the recruitment industry for many years, for 20 years. I've been doing recruitments, I've been talking to clients, I've been finding candidates, I've been running a team. And honestly, for the last 10 years, I've had quite a stomach ache because being in the industry is actually really difficult. There are so many competitors. And as you say, it used to be cowboy-ish, but it's still. So when you're in the industry and you always have these targets on your head to find new clients and find great people for those clients, it's there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of sales work, and people think that being a recruiter, it almost sounds like you do recruiting, but it's like 50% sales.
Yeah, 100. I mean, I would actually, the way I see it, whenever I was learning, we had a very sales approach to recruitment, but it's literally you're selling to B2B and B2C, which is a double sell, but like quite hard on its own. It's a bit like a state agency, but a state agency is between two people usually, right? And also at the same time, you're dealing with humans, and humans change their mind all the time, especially when it comes to jobs.
Yeah. They're in, and then they're out.
Honestly, the amount of time I've heard about mortal illnesses at the last stage, everyone was suddenly sick, or the amount of time that I was like, yeah, my wife said no. I was like, we talked about this 17 times. You said she was on board. Like, yeah, no. I was like, so yeah. Anyway, small brackets. But yes, you were mentioning your journey.
I've been in the business for so long, and I started to I thought of some possible ways to how to change the industry, not by changing the process against my clients, but how could I change the wider perspective by building a tech that could impact agencies and customers or companies all over the world. And it's quite hard, I can say, to be a startup business in this environment we have right now. With there's not that much venture capital available. A few years ago, you could raise money on a great PowerPoint and toothpick
on a napkin. You just write it on a napkin. Yeah. That's a business plan. Please give me money.
Exactly. And it's nothing like that today. It's these VCs are holding tight to the cash, and that's fair enough. And you have bankruptcies in the bank sector, and it's just uncertain times. And that gives some challenges for a small startup who wants to change the world.
Of course.
So I went from a really great place with security and safety and a good business, and I just threw it overboard and jumped all into this project at the age of 46. So I'm not like 20 years old living in my parents' garage. I'm a father, a husband, I have a dog and a Volvo, so everybody in Sweden have a Volvo. So
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, look, the positive thing, first of all, you don't look 46 at all, so don't worry.
I used to have a long hair, but now it's
don't worry, it's happening here as well, slowly but steadily. I'm gonna come your way. But and so just to clarify, you think at the moment the biggest issues you're having is specifically within securing the funding. So that would be the number one thing you would recommend other founders to be careful with.
Yeah, it's nothing like it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also really about getting fast to a proof of concept phase. We did some mistakes last year and focused a lot on large enterprise, and we have so much love from the large enterprise segment, but the problem is that these sales processes, they tend to take forever.
The amount of red tape that's actually one of the biggest advice I always give to HR techs when they start is that, look, even if you got an enterprise grade product, that's fine, but test it on a smaller segment. Test it on like 500 to 1,000 employees. If you go directly to target blue chip or Fortune 500, you're just, even to get a meeting is going to take you 3 months. That's the issue around it.
And that's the problem. So we have a huge pipeline on large enterprise in the Nordics, but it's really going slow because what we represent is a new way of working. I tend to think of it like when the first company designed the first CRM system, customer relations system. They went to the first client and said, "Hey, we are doing Excel and emails, and we write it down in a notebook. And why should we use a software for that? We need to change all our processes internally. Look at all these stakeholders." And we seem to be in the same position because we are representing a new way of working for these enterprises, and that they need to grasp it and find out how should procurement work with this? How should the hiring managers work with this? How should TA work with this? And it's super simple, but it just takes time because it's large organizations.
Of course. Yeah. Well, look, actually, one of the things that you mentioned that I think is particularly relevant to discuss for the viewers is that you might not know, but HR tech was voted by G2 the second hardest segment to sell into. Okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this was recently. And I think one of the reasons why, in my opinion, is that human resources is a vital part of the organization, but it's also very cross-functional, which means that an HR and even the chief HR human resources officer usually has a lot of other stakeholders. Well, if you sell sales tech, you'll get the sales team on board, and generally that's fine. Okay, or procurement needs to sign off, that's okay. But human resources involves everybody else. Therefore, I think it's a lot harder, and the level of status quo is very high. So you generally really have to make a very compelling case as to why a certain thing is done in a certain way. And with enterprise, obviously, you need the social proof and the data, which makes it even harder. So it's just something to keep in mind that, especially if you're doing something which is first in market, it's going to take a while to get it off the ground, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like HR hasn't got the same budget as well. The sales director has a huge marketing budget, sales budget, but HR they don't really have funding for external software. They need to ask in several places: IT legal, procurement, management. That's why it takes a longer time.
Well, actually, this is another one of the tips that I always give to founders is you got to think about it this way, right? If you go to the sales director is going to get it done. It doesn't care. Marketing director, same. IT director, usually, again, they are just got so many things in terms of innovation in the company. They tend to have a quite high position. The chief human resources, the chief HR officer, generally is obviously a more political function, right? And because of that reason, they really need to be also sometimes helped. How do they sell this internally? They're not the natural driver because they're a maintainer of balance, right? So they're not a driver of innovation, like a lot of other functions are. And therefore, for this, one of the important part of the process is really to help them. How do you sell this to all the departments? Why should you sell it to them? And what are they going to get out of it, basically?
Yeah, correct. So what we've learned is that we need to focus somewhere else. We need to go after the smaller segment, scale-up segment, companies in growth, and they have a much faster decision process, and that's what can get us, the proof of concept much quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's actually, I think, easier to go from the bottom up than from the top down. Because if your solution is enterprise level, SMEs are not going to care. They'll be like, well, I'm not Microsoft. I don't need that. So I think that approaching it this way, you don't have to go to the startups at all effects. You can start with a much higher level
Exactly.
and then still have a different idea. So that makes perfect sense. So look, just you mentioned then funding was the first tough part. Then the second was obviously product market fit and then the specific targeting. What would be a third lesson that you're taking away from this journey so far?
Right now, we are focusing on getting, finding that formula that can generate leads for us automatically.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking a lot about online advertisement, Google, LinkedIn, so forth. And we need to find, that way that seems to be the best lead generator. And when we find that, we just need to push more funding into that channel. So right now we're testing, all sorts of challenges in order to find the right way to help us get new clients, and that's also a big job.
Yeah, look, actually, especially in the recruitment tech sector, it can be quite tricky. From what I've seen from the various founders, because the target audience is also attacked by recruiters. So the standard channel, like advertising to some extent, PPC, if targeted really well, I've seen some good results from some companies. It takes a while to optimize, and then obviously things like emails, which tend to be the preferred, let's say, channel for HR. Obviously, they're so flooded that they got so many emails they get all the time. So generally, actually, what I've seen the most successful would be the proper cold outreach. So a combination of the LinkedIn, email, and phone, and that's something that a lot of the upcoming startups are implementing. It's just like, well, we're gonna go all out with the outreach, and then they optimize the marketing later. Especially because marketing is a big machine that takes a while to get oiled up. So it's just something that I've seen quite a lot from my other founders working to a decent level, basically.
Yeah. The last thing I would mention is that we are a two-sided platform.
Of course.
You have this, I think, ancient quote about the chicken and the egg. And that's actually what we are experiencing. Also, you have the hiring company side asking how many recruiters are on the platform. And you got the recruiter side asking how many assignments are on the platform. And they're like looking at each other, just waiting for
it's like a Mexican standoff.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
So we've been working like one phase with driving assignments into the platform, and then we didn't have enough recruiters, and then we did a large push for recruiters with webinars and so forth. And now we got lots of recruiters, and we need more assignments because they're looking at us saying, "Hey, we want more assignments." But it's kind of like filling up on both sides simultaneously, and that also is difficult because a marketplace, you need two sides. Imagine Airbnb, where you only have tenants, but you have nobody who wants to rent, or so you need both sides at the same time. Uber, you have chauffeurs, but you don't have anyone wants to buy a taxi. And it takes time to push this to the both sides into the platform, and then again, it's a new way of working on top of that. Yeah,
it's actually interesting. That's a good point. So your recommendation would be for those developing a marketplace. Obviously, they need to keep in mind that they'll have two different trains moving at the same speed, and they need to make sure that they're always kind of matched on the same level, basically.
Yeah. If we get too many suppliers and we have too less assignments, they will not feel the value. If we have too many assignments and we don't have enough suppliers, they will feel that the offers that they are presented for are not good enough. So it really needs to follow each other on the both sides, and that's two different channels we need to sell to.
Makes sense. Okay, look, and then just to wrap this up, obviously, I kind of want to discuss. We kind of hinted at it, right? But why is it that you decided to start the company, and what is it that you can do for the people, basically?
Yeah, we mentioned it before that I think that one of the drivers in the future for TA is that they want to make better decisions when they find a recruitment partner to work with. I think that hiring companies, if they have a finance recruitment, they want to be exposed for the best recruiters within finance, within their industry, within that geography that the job is located, within that budget range that the job is, and so forth. And it's impossible to find out today who to call.
True.
Just
Everyone is the number one recruiter, right?
Yeah, if you take Germany, a large market, they have more than 60,000 people working in the recruitment industry.
Wow.
And how would you find that person in your area who's got the right skills for your assignment and who's going to work for that budget that you would like to offer? That's the pain that we want to solve. So how can we help companies get the right recruitment consultants for each assignment? And we're not talking about the logos on the wall, the agencies, we're talking about the individuals. So if you imagine, close your eyes and imagine LinkedIn. You have your LinkedIn page, okay?
I've got it. Yeah, I can see it.
And on your LinkedIn page, you kind of merge it with Trustpilot. So in the middle of your LinkedIn page, you can showcase the clients that you've worked with, the ratings that you've got on these assignments. You can show that you've been fantastic within life science in Italy. And you've got a rating of 5.0 on all categories. You even became...
I'm seeing it. I like it. I like it.
And you even got a medal on your page as well, because you were top rated within your sector for the fourth quarter, third quarter, second quarter of 2022. You are a superstar.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the superstar in me.
Imagine if somebody who wanted to buy a recruitment agency or find a client or find a recruiter could see that profile and see how great you were based on real customer feedback and candidate feedback. So when they look at your profile, they would have a good way of making a solid decision based on data, and not just by somebody calling and saying, I'm really good at life science. So that's the one side of the platform. We want to help companies make the right choices and get the right offers and make them, choose the right partner for the specific assignment. On the other side of the platform, the platform that you and I used to represent is kind of, we want the best recruiters to stand out. We want the best recruiters to get more assignments where they are great in that niche, where they used to be fantastic. They need to get more assignments. But the cowboys who are just great salespeople, but maybe are not delivering as promised, they'll need to step up. They'll need to deliver a higher quality, because every time you finalized a recruitment assignment, you will be rated by your client. You'll be rated by the final candidates. Did you deliver a great service to the candidates? Did you deliver a great quality to the client? How was your time to hire? How was your ability to find 50% female candidates as we agreed upon? And how can we track that in 12 months? Have you been great at finding female candidates on all assignments during the last 12 months as we agreed upon? And all these data and statistics will be available for the hiring companies. So it's a quality tool.
Yeah, I mean, this is finally putting the real data of the world world of recruitment at the grasp of the actual talent acquisition. Because at the moment, talent acquisition can only analyze their own data, where our time to fill is 6 weeks, our time to find the first candidate is 1 week, etc. But this way, they can actually benchmark this against what the market can offer, basically.
Yeah. So, seen from a hiring company perspective, our delivery is you get 3 really relevant offers, but we don't choose for you. it's just like a shortlist. You get 3 relevant offers in Germany instead of 60,000 potential offers. So we help you with the research phase, and we help you narrow down the selection of who would be the best match for this specific position, where you can compare these vendors head to head.
Nice. Okay, this sounds like obviously I understand even better what you mentioned before, because once you hit the critical mass, so once you're gonna have enough of the both sides, then it becomes a no-brainer for people not to want to use it, right? Because they'll be like, well, I mean, for me, if I have to hire somebody or a company, I'll look at Trustpilot, I'll look at G2 reviews, I'll try to figure out what's going on. Should I buy from this person? If you can do that for recruiters, where right now there's no way to find that out, then obviously that makes the buying process better, but also reduces the chances of getting crappy recruiters, which is a pain for pretty much everybody.
Yeah, we've been doing some image surveys in the Danish market, and lots of people who have entered a relationship with a recruiter, they have had really bad experiences. It's like 1/3 have experienced that the cooperation went wrong, and they didn't find the right person. The person stopped immediately after they were hired. There are many factors involving this, but it seems to be a pain that it's difficult to find the needle in the haystack, and we would like to help that process.
100%. I think that's a very good goal, and I think you got all the reasons to go in the right direction. So look, to wrap it up, I always like to finish on a positive. So what would be the biggest win so far that you'd like to share?
Yeah, that's
or proudest moment. You can choose.
Yeah, I have it's like I'm a cyclist.
Oh yes, I know you have a cycling network, right? I remember.
Yeah. So when we cycle in the mountains, it's not like you have 17 kilometers to the top.
Wow.
On Mount Ventoux, whatever.
God. Okay.
But on every kilometer, you have a stone on the side saying 1, 2, 3, and you hit these stones like with 10 minutes interval, and it's 40 degrees, and you're killing yourself. But when you are at the mountain and it's a really steep climb, your success is actually just reaching the next stone, and at some point you're halfway, and then it's starting. Then it's a countdown. It's 10.
Yeah,
9, 8,
true.
7. Yeah. So I would say we have lots of successes. We have landed some large enterprise in a Nordic scale. We've got we have great pipeline with companies who want to engage with us. We've got so much super feedback from almost everybody we've introduced the platform to. They really think that the recruitment industry needs to be, shake it a little bit. It hasn't moved that much for many years. So I think there are many small wins. We are reaching the rocks on the side of the climb, but we haven't really experienced the big win. Hopefully we'll get that end of the year when we land our investment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, look, Thomas, thank you so much for taking part in the podcast, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.